I want to start with you, Mr. Muilenburg, about this one point, you know, the 35,000 planes that are this market opportunity for us. 70% of that market, I understand, is single-aisle planes, that basically, you know, 24,000 of that demand is going to be single-aisle planes, which is kind of evenly divided right now between Boeing and Airbus, and yet we have these new entrants into the market like China and Brazil who are making serious investment in that market. So what is it that we need to do to stay competitive in the U.S. in manufacturing of the single-aisle planes?
Yeah. Senator, you bring up a very good point, and your statistics there are very accurate. The majority of those 35,000 planes are in the single-aisle marketplace. Boeing, today we have our 737 family of aircraft that compete in that market space against our principal competitor, Airbus. That is our most competitive market space. A couple of things that I think are important to enable U.S. industry and the rest of the infrastructure as we look forward. One is continuing to invest in innovation. As you know, we are currently investing in the 737 MAX, the next version of the 737, which will make the airplane 14% more efficient than it already is today as we work in this competitive marketplace. But continuing to invest in aerospace R&D in the country to enable that innovation, I think, is very important. We know also that many of the airlines that are buying these single-aisle airplanes are leveraging government investment in Europe. We continue to be concerned about the illegal subsidies that we see in Europe that Airbus is taking advantage of. We think the WTO compliance panel that's currently evaluating the compliance of Airbus to the previous WTO rulings that were made, it's important that that's brought to conclusion so that we can operate on a level playing field. XM Bank reauthorization, as we talked about, is another important financing element here that will enable us to take advantage of that marketplace. As we said, 80% of those airplanes will likely be sold outside of the United States, while 80% of the jobs will be in the United States. So it's in our best interest to help airlines finance and take those airplanes. And then lastly, I think it's workforce training. As you said, if we look at the demographics of our workforce across Boeing and much of the aerospace industry, about 50% of our top engineers and mechanics will be eligible to retire over the next roughly 5 years. If you look at the STEM pipeline in this country, just to give you an example, we have about 4 million children entering kindergarten this year. At current rates, that will produce about 60,000 to 70,000 engineers at the end of college. That's not even enough to satisfy the aerospace industry, let alone all sectors that need engineers. So investing in the future pipeline, training across engineers, mechanics, all of those highly skilled areas, an important investment for the future as well.
Thank you. And I have some follow-up for that, but I also want to ask a question because I think, you know, many of us have mentioned this, you know, Malaysian Flight 370 and the fact that the flight is missing and everybody is very anxious and concerned, including and mostly the family members who are living through this. But it seems to me that certain things shouldn't be missing, and that is information and data about what is the accuracy of either in-flight information or I wanted to ask Mr. Callio about this issue of Interpol. I think I found it surprising, maybe many Americans did, that U.S. carriers or flights in and out of the U.S. basically had background checks, and yet some of these other foreign destinations don't. Ms. Blakey, I don't know if you know about these in-flight monitoring systems, but these are the 777 is some of the most technologically sophisticated flying machines that are out there. And I think people are anxious to know, is there data collected on these planes that's a normal part of engine maintenance, and what is that information, and how can it be made available to people?
Well, to speak to the last point, because I'm sure there's lots of expertise up here at the table, I certainly can't comment on the specifics of the Rolls-Royce engines that were on that flight. But it is true that airplanes, new airplanes, are flying computers, and they do have tremendous amounts of data that is very helpful in maintaining the extraordinary safety record that we have, because they do monitor in flight, for example, the health and activity of engines. That is something that newer engines will do. They do it periodically during the flight. If there are anomalies that begin to appear in terms of the data, then that monitoring becomes more intense and transmission to the ground is available, again, depending upon the model. And then finally, when they land, of course, you can download all of that so that from a maintenance standpoint, as well as from the standpoint of transit issues, we've got a tremendous amount of information available. So that certainly is a part of the picture in all of this.
So that communication is continuing during flight?
It depends, again, on the model, the engine itself, but it is sporadic usually with a healthy engine. It is not continuous. I would turn to Mr. Muilenburg. He also knows this.
Yeah, that's an accurate description of the overall system. So we can't yet comment on the details of that specific flight. But the technology is sophisticated and available. Our in-flight monitoring systems are often used to enhance the safety and maintenance of the airplanes. So we have a team on the ground in Malaysia working with the safety board, and we're providing technical assistance. So we will stay very closely engaged in that process.
And my time is up on this round, but Mr. Callio, how do U.S. carriers look at this Interpol issue in the sense that they're providing the safety and security for systems flying in and out of the United States? Our U.S. carriers are doing, in partnership with our government, that work, but Americans are now finding out that if they're on these other flights, they're not basically going through the same Interpol system.
Madam Chairwoman, I worry a little bit about commenting about anything right now because we don't really know, and I'm not intimately familiar with the Malaysian security, but we do have agreements with many other countries, and we work with our partners in flight on the security matters. Security is not something that we normally compete on. You know, we've got the best system in the world, we think, so we're going to have to wait to see what the facts say about the Interpol report.
Okay. Well, I think Americans want to understand, as we have implemented security regimes, what's happening to these systems around the globe. So, thank you.